They seated me at table number 12, behind a massive potted plant so tall it could hide a violin inside. The position made me feel like an outdated piece of furniture someone wanted to keep out of sight from the guests. I sat down with a sweet smile, knowing full well that the young groom had yet to realize the undercurrents he was about to face. 3 days later, he would knock on my door with a stack of papers, thinking he had a solution, but in reality, he would only give me weeks of laughter. Daniel Pierce was unaware that the frail old lady he saw before him was not as fragile as she appeared, but held priceless cards in her hand. That morning, I chose my outfit as carefully as if I were arranging a chess game. A simple gray dress, not luxurious but sufficiently elegant, paired with my grandmother's pearl necklace, the only thing I wanted to bring so my daughter wouldn't think her mother was too sloppy. My hair was neatly styled at Martha's usual salon, nothing fancy, just right for the ceremony in Charleston. When I walked in, Catherine, my daughter, passed by in a hurry, managing to throw a quick comment. "You look fine, Mom." Fine. A word that sounded like a consolation prize in a beauty pageant. Kate, meanwhile, was stunning in the family's vintage lace dress. She radiated like early summer sunshine, making everyone forget their everyday worries. I felt both proud and a faint sense of anxiety, because I knew real life was never as easy as that smile. Guests began to trickle in. Daniel's parents arrived late, but entered as if they were walking down a red carpet. Patricia Pierce, his mother, was draped in diamonds so dazzling I worried a passing airplane would be blinded. She moved through the room with the air of a queen, blowing kisses to the important people, and gliding past me as if I didn't exist. I handed my invitation to a young waiter. There must be some mistake, I thought. No mistake, ma'am. Table number 12, right behind. The main decoration. I chuckled inwardly. The main decoration, what they called a seat, that was nothing more than a place of exile. From there, I could only watch the party through a large mirror on the wall. And in that mirror, I saw myself, Eleanor Whitmore, 72 years old, neatly tucked away like an old relic. The wedding was indeed beautiful. Kate walked down the aisle like a dream, and Daniel looked slick in his perfect tuxedo. But as the cocktail party began, I noticed something important. Daniel had many masks. He smiled brilliantly at the wealthy, politely at the useful, and was indifferent to anyone he considered to be of less value. Mrs. Whitmore. His voice came from right behind me. I turned, facing the brightest smile he had, the kind reserved for people he planned to manipulate. "It's truly wonderful, isn't it?" he said, gesturing as if he himself had arranged the sunset outside the window. "You must be so proud." "How?" "Proud enough that—" "My heart is fluttering," I replied, my voice sweeter than syrup. "Though I must say, this spot gives me a very interesting perspective." He didn't bother to notice the hidden thorns in my words. "I hope we can have a private chat soon. Get to know each other better." How fascinating. People usually do that before getting married, but I appreciate your backward devotion. His lips paused for a moment, just a flicker, but I caught it. "How about this?" Daniel continued. "Dinner, just the two of us. I have some ideas for family collaboration." Family collaboration. It sounded like a disguised contract. I nodded, intentionally putting on a happy face. "That sounds nice. I love dinners with secrets. How about this Thursday?" "Perfect. I know a very discreet place downtown." That night, I saw myself in the mirror again. An old woman with gray hair, a simple dress, looking exactly like what people would imagine, shopping with discount coupons, worried about utility bills. But that was the image I had deliberately created for the past 2 years, a harmless person. And on Thursday evening, when Daniel invited me to the French restaurant in Charleston, he stepped perfectly into his role, the successful, sophisticated man. The wine he chose had a name as long as a novel. As we sat across from each other, he leaned in and asked, "How are you managing life alone? It must be so difficult." I took a sip of wine and smiled faintly. Difficult? After all these years, I find most things become quite mundane. But Daniel didn't stop. He steered the conversation toward security, finances, and the predators who might take advantage of me. Then he took a yellow folder from his jacket and placed it neatly on the table, as if presenting a treasure. Inside were powers of attorney for finances, medical decisions, and all personal matters. Everything was to be handed directly to him and Kate. A comprehensive package of power, wrapped in a veneer of care. I flipped through each page, then closed it, placing my hand on it as if giving a blessing. This is very elaborate. But you wouldn't mind if I let my private lawyer review it, would you? Daniel's smile trembled slightly. Your lawyer? I've actually prepared everything. You didn't bring a notary? I thought you were always so meticulously prepared. This time, his eyes clearly showed confusion. How did you know? Just a hunch. You have the look of someone who always plans ahead. He tried to regain his smile, but I could see it clearly. The mask was cracked. That evening, I left the restaurant with a clear feeling. Daniel Pierce had just discovered I wasn't easy prey. And what a shame for him, because the game had only just begun. The days after dinner dragged on like a dentist appointment you can't cancel. Kate kept calling, her voice filled with newfound marital bliss. He cares about me so much, Mom. He's always thinking about our future, about our financial security. Security. That word echoed like a fire alarm. I just smiled, hiding my inner sarcasm. Oh, how sweet. A man who thinks about money every day, especially someone else's money. That's a truly romantic ideal. Kate, of course, didn't notice. She was still too enchanted by Daniel's new glow. Early the next week, the phone rang. Daniel's voice, smooth as a seasoned insurance salesman. Mrs. Whitmore, I hope you've had a chance to think about our little chat the other day. I've thought about it quite a bit, Daniel. Wonderful. So, can we meet again? Somewhere more private? Perhaps your house? I have a few documents to present. It will be easier to look at them in a comfortable space. I looked at my old house, the one Henry left me, with thick walls and silent rooms. If Daniel wanted to bring the game to my territory, I was more than willing. But this game wouldn't follow his script. Then Wednesday, 7 in the evening. My door is always open. Perfect. I'll bring some case studies to put your mind at ease. He thought I would be impressed by the success of those who had entrusted their lives to someone like him. But in my mind, every step was already set. If Daniel Pierce wanted to play, I would write the rules. On Wednesday, a light rain fell in Charleston, and the wooden eaves pattered like a drumbeat. I wore my simple gray dress, my mother's pearl earrings, and, specifically, Henry's broken watch. An old, seemingly worthless item, but enough to complete the normal widow persona. At exactly 7, the doorbell rang. Daniel stood there, a dark suit fitting him neatly, a leather briefcase in his hand, his trustworthy smile already in place. Eleanor, thank you for having me. I know these things can sometimes be overwhelming. Oh, not at all. I find them more educational than stressful. He walked into the living room, spreading the papers on the coffee table, as if turning my house into his office. These are families who have made similar arrangements to what I'm proposing. Look here. They are now completely secure, free from worrying about any major decisions. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the glossy printed sheets. How wonderful! But before we talk about others, I have a small question. You, Daniel, what real experience do you have to manage the lives of people like me? His smile faltered slightly, but was quickly replaced by a confident look. I have a business background, worked in finance, and now I operate independently. I understand how to manage risk and before that? What specific experience? Which companies did you work for? What degrees or certifications do you have? He hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting to the folder. A variety of positions. I've helped many families navigate. Did they come to you, or did you seek them out? Silence. Only the ticking of Henry's grandfather clock filled the room. I let the silence stretch, then leaned toward him. Daniel, I think I understand. You're not trying to help me, you're trying to control me. His expression changed, his eyes flashing with wariness. Mrs. Whitmore, you're misunderstanding. I understand better than you think. And I also want you to know one thing. I have been recording our entire conversation since you walked into the house. His face turned ashen, as if a mask had just shattered. You can't prove anything. I have more ways than you can imagine. I know about your gambling debts. I know about the elderly women you've approached. I even know about your unpaid loan in New York. Daniel froze, his hands trembling as he gathered the papers. You chose the wrong person, Daniel Pierce, I said in a low voice, letting each word fall like a stone. I am not the prey. I am the one who will end your game. He stood up abruptly, clutching the folder tightly. This isn't over yet. Oh, it was over the moment you stepped into my house. The door closed behind Daniel with a dry click. I poured myself a glass of wine that Henry used to like and sat silently in the kitchen. Tomorrow, I would go down to the basement, open the safe that I hadn't dared to touch for 2 years. Henry had left me the key, along with a message that inside was everything I needed to survive. And now, I had a reason to open it. The next morning, I stood at the top of the wooden stairs leading down to the basement, holding Henry's old key. For 2 years, I had always found reasons to avoid that room. The smell of old paper, the faint scent of tobacco still clinging to his jacket, all of it bringing back a void that I didn't have the courage to face. But now it was different. Daniel Pierce had forced me down here. The basement was silent as a tomb. Henry's vest still hung neatly in the corner of the wardrobe, his desk covered in a thin layer of dust, with a coffee stain and an unfinished crossword puzzle still on it. I ran my hand along the wall behind the bookshelf until I found the faint metal outline, a panel disguised as part of the concrete wall. Inside was the safe Henry had never mentioned. The lock clicked as I turned it a few times. The iron door swung open, and I froze at the sight. Stacks of bank records, investment papers, and contracts I had never seen before. Funds, hidden accounts, figures amounting to tens of millions of dollars. At the bottom of the safe, a thick envelope lay still, with the familiar handwriting of Henry. To Eleanor, when you need it. I opened it. My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading these lines, it means I am no longer here, and someone has tried to take advantage of your kindness. I apologize for never telling you about this money. $33 million, well protected, all of it belongs to you. I lived simply so that we could leave this world rich, and I hid it so you wouldn't become a target. If anyone forces you to open this safe, know that they are the person I want you to be wary of. Find Laura Jensen, the lawyer I have trusted. She knows all the arrangements. She will stand with you and will help you fight back. Don't let anyone steal the result of 40 years of my hard work. Use it to protect yourself, and if necessary, make them regret ever laying a hand on my wife. My hands trembled, and tears welled up without me being able to stop them. Henry, the quiet man throughout his life, had calculated an entire war for me. I immediately called the number on the business card that was tucked inside. Jensen Law Offices. This is Eleanor Whitmore. I believe Henry, my husband, left a message for Laura. The other end of the line was silent for a few seconds. Then a calm female voice replied, Mrs. Whitmore, I have been waiting for this call for 2 years. Can you come see me today? How soon will you be free? Right now. Laura Jensen's office in New York wasn't what I had imagined for a law firm. No gloomy wooden walls, no dark wood desks. Instead, the space was bright, modern, with family photos placed among the law degrees on the wall. Laura greeted me with a firm handshake, her eyes sharp as if they could see through every layer of a person's defense. Eleanor, please have a seat. Henry prepared very well for this day. He said that sooner or later, someone would come to you with sweet tricks to gain control. On the table, she laid out a series of files, trusts, confidentiality agreements, and legal mechanisms I had never even imagined. $33 million have been put into an inviolable trust. You have full control, but no one else can touch it. Even if you sign a power of attorney, this system will neutralize any attempt to seize it. Henry calculated every step. I let out a long breath. So that means Daniel Pierce can't touch a single penny? Correct. But that's just the first part. Henry didn't just leave money. He left a legal weapon. We can go on the offensive. And believe me, I don't intend to let him get away with that scam. A cold, sharp glint appeared in Laura's eyes, not just a lawyer, but a courtroom warrior. The only question is, she said, do you want to stop at defense, or do you want to go further and destroy him? I clutched Henry's letter in my hand, remembering Daniel's smug face as he slid the folder toward me. I don't just want to protect myself. I want him to pay. And I have Henry, and you, on my side. Laura nodded, the corner of her lips curving into a cold smile. Then Eleanor, the game truly begins now. That evening, as I left Laura Jensen's office, I sat in my car for a while, watching the New York lights reflect on the wet road. Henry had been so far-sighted that he left me a steadfast ally. I didn't just have money, I had a plan. Laura handed me a new folder, thin but sharp as a knife. This is proof that Daniel approached at least 3 women older than himself in the past 4 years. They all had something in common. They were wealthy, lonely, and they signed over financial powers of attorney to him. Each time, he retreated when he started to be suspected, avoiding a legal trail. With Kate, he had an extra leverage: marriage. I held the folder, feeling my heart beat slow and heavy. Henry was right. This man didn't just want to marry Kate. He wanted to devour the entire Whitmore family. So what do we do first? I asked. Laura smiled, her eyes as sharp as a blade. You don't need to report him to court right away. We will let Daniel expose himself. He thinks you're weak. He thinks Kate will side with him. We will let him believe that, and then let your own daughter see his true face. Oh, 3 days later, Daniel came to my house again, this time with Kate. She held her husband's hand, her eyes shining, unaware of any drama. Mom, Daniel just wants to explain again so you can see clearly. We don't want you to feel pressured. I smiled and made tea for both of them. Daniel opened his briefcase and took out the old papers. This time he had added some charts and a few scholarly-sounding terms. You see, he said, his voice even and steady, every important decision is easier to make when shared. I just want to protect this family, especially Kate. Protect it from whom? I asked, taking a sip of tea. From risks. Accidents, illnesses, financial predators out there. I laughed softly. Strange. I never thought I would need protection from my own family. Kate frowned. Mom, why are you saying that? Daniel loves me, he loves you too. This isn't a power struggle. Oh, I looked at my daughter, my voice gentle. Kate, I know you believe him, but I want you to see something. I took the envelope Laura had prepared from a drawer. Inside was a copy of an old contract. Daniel had drafted it for a woman in Florida in 2019. The names were redacted, but Daniel's signature was still clearly visible. His face twitched, and the hand on Kate's thigh tightened. What is this? Someone has fabricated. I have more than one copy, Daniel, and more than one witness. I leaned back, my voice calm. If you like, I can call my lawyer Laura Jensen to come here right now. Kate looked at her husband, then at me. For the first time, her eyes wavered. Daniel, is this true? He managed a distorted smile, trying to piece things together. Kate, my love, this was just an old job, completely legal. I never. What about the account in Miami, and the money you took, and then left halfway through? I cut him off, my voice like a cold blade. He stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. You are ruining your own daughter's happiness. Kate, don't you see? This is your mother's game. She doesn't want us to control the finances. She wants to keep everything for herself. Kate was stunned, her eyes welling up. She looked at me for help. I didn't flinch or soften. My love, I don't need to keep anything for myself. I have lived a simple life, and I have enough to continue. The thing I want to keep is you, not the money. Silence fell over the room. Daniel realized the advantage was no longer in his hands. He collected the papers, fumbling for an excuse. But the more he spoke, the more his panic showed. Kate stepped back, her hand leaving his. This isn't over, he growled, then left, slamming the door shut behind him. Kate sank into the chair, burying her face in her hands. I wrapped my arms around her, gently stroking her hair. My child, some lessons are painful, but it's better to learn them sooner rather than later. Outside, the darkness of Charleston was thick. But in my heart, the light from Henry, from his preparations, still guided the way. The days that followed felt heavy, as if a layer of fog wouldn't dissipate. Kate stayed at my house more often, probably to avoid Daniel, but her eyes were always thoughtful. I knew she was torn. It wasn't easy to give up a new marriage, and a mother's words were too bitter to accept right away. Late one evening, as I was getting ready for bed, the phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice was low, but hissed through his teeth. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you think you've won? Kate is still my wife. You can so doubt, but I know how to get her back. You can't change love." I replied calmly, "Daniel, love never needs a financial contract to prove itself. And believe me, my daughter is smarter than you think." He hung up, but I knew it was only the beginning. The next day, Kate returned from Daniel's apartment with a complicated expression. She sat at the kitchen table, twisting a napkin in her hands. "Mom, Daniel said it was all a misunderstanding. He said you deliberately dug up his past to drive us apart." I sat across from her, calmly looking her in the eye. "Kate, I never wanted to separate you and your husband, but you need to ask yourself, why does his past have so many coincidental misunderstandings? Why does he always target women who are richer and more vulnerable? He said it was for work, that he used to be in the consulting field. What kind of job causes a man to leave right after gaining financial control? You should think about it." Kate looked down, silent. I didn't press her. I knew she needed time. That afternoon, Laura Jensen stopped by, carrying a thick envelope. Inside were bank statements, evidence that Daniel had withdrawn money from another widowed woman's account just 1 year before he met Kate. "You should give this to Kate," Laura said, "but let her read it herself. Don't force it." That evening, I placed the envelope on the living room table, not saying anything more. Kate hesitated for a moment, and then opened it. Her eyes scanned each page, first with confusion, then turning to disappointment, and finally to pain. "Oh my God, Mom, She choked back a sob, holding the papers as if they might catch fire in her hands. I just sat next to her, quietly placing a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes, my child, love is like a beautiful house, but if the foundation is rotten, sooner or later it will collapse. The important thing is whether you have the courage to leave before you are buried under the rubble." "Oh." Kate burst into tears, resting her head on my shoulder. For the first time, I felt my daughter was truly listening. But Daniel didn't give up. The next day, he sent Kate a series of long text messages filled with pleas and blame. He said I was jealous, that I wouldn't let go, that I wanted to control her for the rest of her life. "Our love is real," he wrote. "You have to choose, Kate. Do you stand with your mom or with your husband?" Kate showed me her phone, her voice trembling. "Mom, if I stand with you, I lose my husband. If I stand with him, I lose you." I squeezed her hand tightly. "No, my love. You won't lose me. No matter what you choose, I will still be your mother. But you have to decide for yourself. Do you want to live with the truth or live in a lie?" Tears welled in Kate's eyes. Her heart was being pulled apart. I knew this moment was where Daniel placed his final bet, to sow a crack in a mother-daughter bond to save himself. Daniel refused to disappear like other losers. He called Kate, his voice so desperate that even I, if I didn't know better, might have been moved. "I just want one chance, Kate. Just one dinner so I can explain. No lawyers, no your mom, just us." Kate looked at me, hesitant. I nodded. "Go. But let me prepare one small thing first." "Bye." That evening, dinner took place at Daniel's luxurious apartment in downtown Charleston. The candles flickered, romantic French music played, all meant to emphasize that he was the ideal man. "I admit," Daniel began, reaching across to take Kate's hand. "I made mistakes in the past, but my love for you is real. Don't let your mom destroy us." Kate bowed her head, her eyes welling up with tears. "Daniel, I want to believe you, but..." Just then, the door swung open. I walked in with Laura Jensen. Daniel was startled and stood up abruptly. "What is this game? Are you stalking me and my wife?" Laura calmly placed a thick folder of documents on the table. "It's not a game, Pierce. This is bank evidence, transfers, contracts, all related to the women you loved before Kate. The same tactic, the same outcome. Do you want me to read every line out loud for Kate to hear?" Daniel snatched the folder, but I had already pulled out another copy from my handbag. "You can rip it up, But you can't deny it, I said, my voice even and cold. Kate stood in the middle, her eyes wide, looking from her husband to me. Daniel stepped toward her, his voice urgent. Don't believe them, Kate. This is a conspiracy. Your mom doesn't want you to leave her. She's afraid of being lonely, afraid of losing control. I walked closer to my daughter, placing a hand on her shoulder. My love, I'm not afraid of being lonely. I'm only afraid of losing you to someone who sees you as a tool. Look for yourself and choose for yourself. Laura opened the file, pulled out the pages with Daniel's signature, and placed them in front of Kate. This isn't my word, nor your mother's word. This is your husband's signature. It cannot be denied. Huan! Kate took them with trembling hands, her eyes reading every word and number. By the last page, her tears were falling profusely. She turned to Daniel, her voice shattered. You also said these things to them? Daniel stammered, searching for an answer, but his once smooth words were now fragmented. Finally, he shouted, So what? They have nothing to complain about. You're the one I chose to stay with, Kate. You should feel lucky. That last sentence was like a final knife. Kate took a step back, her face white. Lucky? When all this time I was just one of... She sank into the chair, covering her face, and sobbing. I stood beside her, quietly placing my hand on her shoulder. Daniel looked at the scene, understanding that the game was over. He slammed his hand down on the table, then gathered his belongings and left, his words of threat hissing through his teeth. You will regret this. I'm not finished yet. The door slammed shut, leaving behind a heavy silence. Laura sat down next to me and said softly, He has buried himself. Kate has seen enough. I held my daughter in my arms and whispered, You won't have to cry because of him anymore. From now on, we will start over, you and I. Outside, the Charleston night was still dense, but in my heart, a new chapter had begun. A chapter where the predator had been unmasked, and my family, though wounded, had finally escaped his trap. The time after that confrontation was like a storm slowly dissipating. At first, the turmoil was still there. Daniel's frantic calls, his long messages full of pleas and interspersed with threats. But then, when Laura officially filed a request for the court to review the papers he tried to force me to sign, when the evidence of his old scams was delivered to the judge, Daniel had no choice but to fall silent. Kate proceeded with the divorce quickly, with Laura's legal support. Within 3 months, Daniel was in a situation not unlike a gambler who had lost everything. He lost his wife, his reputation, and was placed on the watch list of financial companies. The people who used to dine with him at exclusive clubs now avoided him, no one wanting to be associated with someone known for taking advantage of women. One afternoon, Kate and I sat on the porch, watching the golden sunlight fall on the garden behind the house. She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice relieved but still with a hint of sadness. I thought I wouldn't be able to get through this, Mom. But now I see. It's better to be hurt once than to live a lifetime in a lie. I gently squeezed her hand. You haven't lost anything, Kate. You've only let go of an illusion. What you've kept is what matters, your courage and yourself. We sat in silence, listening to the wind rustle the old oak tree in the front yard. I suddenly remembered Henry. The letter he left, his silent preparations for our future. I thanked him inwardly, because even though he was gone, he was still protecting his family. A week later, Laura stopped by, carrying a thin file. It's done, she said, with a warm smile. The divorce is finalized. Kate's assets are intact. Daniel walked away with nothing. Kate nodded, her eyes shining with new determination. I'll be fine. And I've also learned the most important thing. No one is allowed to decide my life for me. I looked at my daughter, seeing a genuine smile on her face for the first time in months. And in that moment, I understood that everything had come to a close. The darkness had receded, leaving us an opportunity to start over, slowly, but steadily. That night, I sat alone in the living room, looking at an old photograph of Henry. I raised my glass of wine and whispered, You see, Henry? The game is over, and we are the ones left standing. The candlelight trembled on the glass, reflecting my silhouette as old but proud. I smiled faintly, knowing that even if the future held many challenges, this time We would walk with our eyes wide open, no longer afraid, no longer letting anyone lead us by the nose. And so, the story ended. Not with bloodshed or ruin, but with a small family that had learned to rise from its deepest cracks.